Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Professor Shiladitya CHAKRABORTY from University of Kalyani in India. I teach public administration in University of Kalyani, and I would like to make my presentation on a very relevant and important issue, that is reforming the Central Bureau of Investigation, which is one of the premier anti-corruption agencies in India. Now, before I begin my presentation, I would like to convey my gratitude to all the organizers of this conference on meritocracy, integrity and innovation in administration, organized by the Astana Civil Service Hub of the Republic of Kazakhstan. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to make an online presentation in this annual conference. Now, as far as my presentation is concerned, I would be focusing on the Central Bureau of Investigation and the policy reforms which are required to make it more politically independent and operationally impartial. Now, as we all know, under Article 6 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the United Nations holds that any anti-corruption organization, to function properly, it should be operationally independent and free from political interference. Unfortunately, the ground reality in India is such that the most important, the premier anti-corruption agency known as the Central Bureau of Investigation is not free from political interference and cannot function politically independent of the political executive. So my researches are, what are the factors behind the politicization and loss of operational independence of the Central Bureau of Investigation? And secondly, what reforms need to be implemented to make the Central Bureau of Investigation more efficient in its functioning? Now, for those who are not aware about the Central Bureau of Investigation, I would like to briefly delve into the history of the Central Bureau of Investigation. During World War II, when India was a colony of Great Britain, the British government, the then British government, had in fact formed an organization known as the Special Police Establishment in 1941 to stem the rising tides of corruption in administration in India. This organization later was evolved into another organization known as the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act in 1946. And the CBI, or the Central Bureau of Investigation, draws its origin from this particular act, which was done during the British period, known as the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act. Now, what are the factors behind the growing politicization of such an important institution in administration? One important factor which has led to the loss of operational independence of the Central Bureau of Investigation as far as investigating corruption cases are concerned is that the appointment of the director of the Central Bureau of Investigation has become highly political in nature. In fact, the director of the Central Bureau of Investigation is the executive head of the organization, and he plays a very important role in thwarting any kind of unwarranted political interference into the functioning of the organization, and it also tries to insulate this organization from political interference. Now, what is the factor behind this interference? As far as Section 4A of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act is concerned, one would see that a collegium appoints the director of the Central Bureau of Investigation. This collegium consists of the Prime Minister of India, who is the chairperson, the leader of the opposition, and also the Chief Justice of India, and if the Chief Justice is not there, then any other judge of the Supreme Court of India. This three-member collegium, or this three-member body, would appoint the director of CBI. Unfortunately, they only suggest the name of the director of the CBI, and the ultimate authority of appointing the director of CBI goes to the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet of India, and this cabinet committee is headed by the Prime Minister of India. And here there is a dangerous precedence, because sometimes when the leaders of the opposition pass their dissenting note, or when the topmost judge of the Supreme Court of India, that is the Chief Justice of India, give their dissent as far as appointing the director of CBI is concerned, it is overturned because the ultimate authority of appointing the director of CBI goes with the appointments committee of the cabinet. Another factor which has again led to the politicization of the Central Bureau of Investigation, leading to its loss of operational autonomy, has been the fact that the Central Bureau of Investigation has the mandate to serve multiple masters instead of just one, and therefore it causes an administrative nightmare as far as its functioning is concerned. For instance, I would like to give a small example of it. The Central Bureau of Investigation comes under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, which reports directly to the Prime Minister of India. So in the day-to-day administrative functions, the CBI is responsible to the Prime Minister of India and functions under the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension. As far as financial matters of the Central Bureau of Investigation is concerned, it is directly under the control of the Ministry of Finance, and it has to take special permissions as far as spending money in investigating corruption cases are concerned from the Finance Ministry. It also is under the Home Minister, because the Home Minister is the cadre controlling authority of the CBI. So whenever there is a recruitment happening in the CBI, or whenever senior bureaucrats are placed in the CBI has to take clearance from the Home Ministry, and it is the cadre controlling authority as far as CBI is concerned. Finally, when corruption cases happen, the CBI has to appoint a panel of experts as counsels for investigating corruption cases. So it has to hire its own lawyers, but unfortunately it has to take the prior permission of the Ministry of Law and Justice to kind of appoint these panel counsels and investigate cases of corruption. So you can well imagine that the Central Bureau of Investigation serves multiple masters. Now, another very important factor which has led to the erosion of functional autonomy of the Central Bureau of Investigation has been the system of taking prior approval from the state governments for investigating corruption charges against officials working under the various state governments in India. Now, as many of us know, that India is a federal union, and India has 28 state governments and 8 union territories directly functioning under the control of the union government. Now, as far as state governments are concerned, they are relatively autonomous administratively, and the bureaucrats who are functioning under the state government, if any kind of corruption charges are brought against them, the Central Bureau of Investigation can take up these cases and investigate these cases. Unfortunately, under Section 6 of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, this corruption case or investigation of this corruption case requires the special consent of the constituent state government in which the corrupt bureaucrat is functioning. So sometimes it is seen that the state government, due to political reasons, refuses to give their consent to the CBI or the Central Bureau of Investigation, or sometimes delays the process, leading to the loss of evidence against these corrupt bureaucrats, and it also dilutes the investigation because of loss of time. Another problem as far as the functioning or operational independence of the Central Bureau of Investigation is that under the Prevention of Corruption Act 2018, a new section has been added in this particular act, that is the Prevention of Corruption Act. This is Section 17A. This Section 17A holds that no civil servant can be investigated against by the Central Bureau of Investigation under the Prevention of Corruption Act of 2018 without prior approval of the central government or the state government or the authority competent to remove him from office, as the case may be. So whenever there is a charge against any bureaucrat either functioning at the central government or union government level or at the state government level, the CBI will have to take the prior permission from the government concerned before starting an investigation against that particular official. And this kind of a system under Section 17A of the Prevention of Corruption Act leads to delay in obtaining sanctions from the concerned government, and this also results in destruction of evidence as far as corruption cases are concerned, because most of these corrupt bureaucrats are placed in high profile offices and they enjoy a lot of government power, so they often try to destroy the evidences against them, and ultimately their case falls flat and they go free. Now the important question is, what reforms can be implemented as far as the Central Bureau of Investigation is concerned, so that it can function more independently and politically insulated from any kind of unwarranted political interference. Now, as far as the issue of appointment of the Director of Central Bureau of Investigation is concerned, what needs to be done immediately is that this process of appointment should be subject to public scrutiny, where there should be adequate amount of transparency in the process of shortlisting, selection and appointment of the director of CBI. So the various government websites in which can be used for disseminating the information about the list of candidates who have been selected for appointment as director of CBI, because this position of the director of CBI is extremely sensitive, and if the director of CBI is politically pliant, then he will not be able to solve any of the corruption charges either against the political executive or against the permanent executive. Another reform which needs to be immediately implemented is that to insulate the director of CBI from any kind of political pressure, the term of the director of CBI should be fixed. Usually for a term of 3 years they should be appointed, and in case any kind of complaint is filed against the director of CBI, then the authority to remove the director of CBI should be given only to the President of India, and this kind of authority should be subject to checks and balances from the Parliament of India, so that in case the director of CBI is asked to leave his office, then this process of impeachment or this process of removal of the director of CBI should be politically neutral instead of being politically partial. Another very important reform which needs to be immediately implemented is the question of financial autonomy. Now, ultimately, all these reforms can be done only if there is a very strong political will to implement these reforms in India. So, the most important ingredient for depoliticizing as well as making the CBI operationally independent is the factor of political will. Thank you very much. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation.